It was a test. I do not know if we passed or failed.
Well, 4 exploding heads are better than 1. Where are we going, and who are we killing?
Emerging within the shadow of the mighty Arkham series of games was always going to be tough. From an architectural perspective, the team have moved on from Unreal Engine 3 at least, to Unreal Engine 4. It does share a great deal with the open city and fast traversal of that staggering final chapter, and from an art and style perspective, think more multicoloured Marvel comics than dark DC tome. From bright sunshine across Gotham City, vibrant greens, reds and purples, each character and enemy are in stark contrast to the subtle and muted tones of the prior games. The same wide open city is available to you early on, and each of the 4 playable characters, which can be swapped quickly using the D-pad, have their own unique and fast means of travel. This presents one of our biggest issues when it comes to performance.
Stay on the flash.
Available only on current generation consoles and PC, the game comes with a single performance mode on all platforms, aside from separate settings for motion blur, field of view and other post effects. Thankfully, that one mode targets 60 FPS on all platforms, but the level of success on that front largely depends on the console and area of play, while PC is an entirely different story. Starting with the Series S, performance is good in the earlier limited sections with a close enough 60 FPS readouts as you play, but the game struggles with streaming, decompression and general memory management once you get into the open city and moving fast with any characters. This gives us some low 50s at points and even some 50 plus millisecond spikes at times, which cause minor but noticeable pauses. The shift from gameplay to real-time cinematics and back is as seamless as the Arkham games, and generally these run very well at that 60 FPS target.
The hell is that?
Is it a bloody alien? I suppose that counts as activating the transponder.
The Series X and PS5 are similar but not perfect, again holding a close lock on 60 FPS, but both can still drop frames and stutter into the low 50s. Of the two, Series X is slightly worse, with it having more streaming stutter and hiccups over the PS5. That said, the PS5 can still drop frames, but it tends to hold a higher, albeit largely invisible, level of performance of approximately 10% in like-for-like sections. Anyone with a variable rate refresh screen will benefit when these areas arise on all formats, but the long stutters will still be noticed. Visually, the Series X and PS5 are a close enough match to the PC version, running at the maximum high settings, aside shadows and level of detail down a rung, and without the ray trace reflections that PC offers. Both output a full 4K target, but the actual geometry maxes out at 1800p on both, with a low of 2240 by 1260p, highlighting DRS is enabled here, which is a choice only available on PC with TAA or DLSS, pointing to the fact that PS5 and Series X may use TAA also, and this does present a far cleaner and sharper image than the Series S, although the huge hike in pixel counts and texture quality is a big reason for that. They both suffer from dithering artifacts and ghosting in the TAA, which is why I'm inclined to think they use TAA and then DRS, while the Series S relies on a fixed 900p base from all my counts, using FSR1 back to 1080p. Other cutbacks on the Series S come in textures which are a lower quality than both bigger consoles. Level of detail is pared back significantly in medium to long views, as is the shadow map cascade and resolution. Screen space reflections are also disabled, which removes dynamic reflections, less light bounce with darker shades in most surfaces, along with reduced volumetrics. The Series S looks closer to a mix of low and medium settings when compared to PC, and comparing it to Series X and PS5, it does suffer with a big degradation in image quality and slightly worse performance. 60 FPS, I still think the trade-off is the right one, and maybe a later patch to offer a cleaner and more improved 1440p DRS30 would be a nice benefit for those with a 4K screen. Series X does run with a high resolution on average, and this long shot across the city, for example, was a flat 1440p on PS5 and 1620p on Series X. Other shots were the same. Now, this is more an academic than actual difference you would see, but it shows that the wider GPU is at least being utilized to push more pixels.
Why we should go out into that shit show?
The bombs, dumbass.
Morbid curiosity.
Now, PC is not such a positive tale of performance. Options enable a limited level of tweaking, with the ray trace reflections being a welcome but minor boost over consoles. However, they are broken on my AMD RX 6800 machine. I'm sure they work perfectly fine on Nvidia. Now, DLSS will remain the default choice for Nvidia players and the best balance of performance versus IQ. But on AMD or Steam Deck, you have the choice of TAA or AMD's FSR1 and FXAA, but I don't recommend that. And this means the lower the base resolution, the worse the image quality will become. With my RX 6800 and Zen 2 5600X at 4K TAA DRS high settings, which are close to matching the console and slightly better in a few areas as noted, it can hold a decent level of 60 FPS in those smaller battles, and is often a full 4K. Shader compilation stutter is not prevalent, around 8 minutes or so shader compilation on first boot, and the game may suffer on occasion with a few, but streaming stutter and memory is the main issue. The split architecture requires more effort and changes over the unified memory pool on consoles, echoing the Arkham Knight PC release all those years ago.
My kill count is sky high.
With ray trace reflections on, the increased BVH management, the traversal and data impacts CPU and bandwidth. On this machine, and likely even more powerful ones, it causes horrible performance. As such, I simply cannot recommend ray tracing at all. With mid-30s and large 150 plus millisecond spikes when travelling and fighting through the city, and due to the engine trying to improve performance, heavier resolution drops happen to claw back performance, just as we see on the console versions. The GPU utilization can drop very low, and in general, any recommendations are mute, as the game's performance appears more impacted by the code than the hardware. Aside disabling ray tracing, which helps the worst case scenarios, even with patches dropped and addressed here and ones still yet to come, I am not confident any format will be expunged of these frame pacing problems.
Feels like I've been stuck in this conversation for 5 years. Can we please?
Oh, so sorry, Deadshot. Are we interrupting your being strapped to a gurney?
Isn't Deadshot supposed to be white?
Aren't you supposed to be shutting your damn mouth? Kangaroo-looking ass.
Because you are Australian.
Okay, so we gonna do the murder each other thing or what?
The game's visuals are little Harvey Dent. On the one side, it reinforces the single most important aspect of all games, and often movies: lighting. The lighting artist did an exceptional job here in fill, point and coloured lights. Many sections use distinct hues and shadows to emphasise mood, atmosphere or the excellent models. Even though they are a step up over Arkham and Gotham Knight, much of this comes down to material quality across all surface types. From the white, dull matte paint of Quinn's face to the subsurface diffuse of Shark's flesh. The animators also deserve huge praise, with the mixture of performance capture and keyframed animation being a highlight. The exaggerated expressions, winks and teeth gnashing. Each character portrays great emotion throughout. Eyes are incredible, with rapid movement, blink, rolling, adding a great deal to not often cross that uncanny valley. The cutscenes shine the most and are the highlight of the game, and certainly the visuals. Sadly, the in-game action falls from these heights, almost as if they were managed by different teams. Compared to Arkham Knight, it does not make any big or even small leaps. The city has less activity, NPCs and even art direction. The extensive use of purples and oranges in some sections is drab, and with the overly busy UI and almost fruit machine style rewards, it is off-putting as it feels at odds to some of the more story focused sections. Add in repetitive and samey enemies and missions that entail travelling around a city with little charm, major landmarks or realistic construction, loses much of the charm and identity Arkham City and Knight had. Even the water is not as good, the very definition of a high watermark for sure. Now, animation cycles and blends are a mix of reuse and awkwardness, such as Harley's gangly run and swing or Shark's jump and strike attacks. I found little in the gameplay art or style that impressed me throughout play. Killing the Justice League is in the title, but killing the best Batman Trilogy and Ark in games is something else entirely. It has some excellent models, humorous moments and cutscenes, but in the circa 9 years since the last and 1.5 generations later, it still hangs on to the same core engine and coattails of that great trilogy. It offers little new or impressive elements from a visual, audio or even gameplay perspective. Performance is good but not great, with classic data streaming stutter, which impacts the PC version the most and is why console versions are recommended over that. Ironically, Gotham Knights was also a title that fell short of the Arkham series, but in hindsight, it did a great many things better than this latest entry from Rocksteady. This could be a rocky year one for the Suicide Squad, but they certainly killed Arkham. Stone cold dead. And that's it for another deep dive into game technology, performance and all things pixel related. Remember, if you like what we do here on IGN Performance Reviews, then keep it IGN, and we'll catch you on the next one.
No, not a threat at all. Still, let their corpses strike fear into those who'd resist.